Hello, welcome to Dado Tips and Tricks by Freud. I'm Mark Barr, professional woodworker with Freud, and I want to congratulate you on the purchase of your high-quality Freud Dado set. Freud carries a full line of blades, bits, shaper cutters, and power tools, including a line of high-quality Dado sets for any performance level. Freud's Dado sets continually win awards from all the woodworking magazines for their quality, innovation, and value. Freud has some of the highest quality standards in the world. Each Dado blade is laser cut to ensure maximum stability for long cutting life. The precise tooth geometry, combined with a carbide blend that's specially developed and manufactured by Freud, results in a Dado blade that produces a flawless finish. Throughout this video, you will learn why a Dado set is such a versatile tool. In addition to cutting a standard Dado or groove, you can quickly create a variety of joints using only a table saw. You can create rabbet joints, lap joints, box joints, and tenons. You can even use a Dado blade to create decorative dental molding. Dado cutting can be so versatile you can create virtually an entire joinery project using just a Dado cutter. For example, I'm creating a curio cabinet that incorporates 4 different types of Dado cuts that I'll demonstrate in this video. Today we'll focus on simple dados, rabbets, half-lap joints, and dental molding. Working with a Dado set versus a saw blade allows you to work more efficiently. When you use a Dado set, you can cut wide grooves or dados in one pass. If you were using a saw blade, it could take a long time and become frustrating pretty quickly. Using a Dado set also enables you to make flat bottom square dados versus the uneven bottom that you might get with a saw blade. Using Freud's patented dial width Dado set versus standard stacked Dado sets has some great advantages. For example, there are no shims to work with, so you don't have to remove blades from the saw to make any adjustments. The dial hub lets you make precision adjustments for super accurate grooves and dados. Plus shims are easy to lose, and this set eliminates that worry too. Today I'm going to focus on Dado tips and techniques using Freud's dial width stacked Dado set, which is designed for the serious woodworker. However, if you're using one of Freud's other Dado sets, you'll make adjustments using shims. Another advantage that the dial width set has that no other Dado set in the US can currently claim is that it can cut a Dado less than 1/4 of an inch wide. In fact, it can cut a Dado as narrow as 5.5 millimeters or 7/32 of an inch. Finally, since Freud develops and manufactures its own carbide, you can be sure that your Freud Dado set will give precise, splinter-free cuts in a variety of materials. In addition to your Dado set and manual, here's the equipment you want to have before you get started. Table saw and saw instruction manual, hearing and eye protection, feather boards or hold downs. Today I'm going to use Freud's BF 3510 feather boards. Calipers. You should also have a push stick to safely guide your wood through the cut. Auxiliary fence like the one I have here, which helps you avoid cutting into your existing table saw fence. Finally, you'll need a miter gauge or a Dado sled and an indexing fence. Instructions on how to make your own hold downs, Dado sled, push stick, and fences can be downloaded from this CD. We suggest that you watch the video once in its entirety before following along in your shop. Let's talk about safety and maintenance. There are safety measures that should be followed to attain maximum performance and ensure personal safety. We recommend the following precautions. Read and follow all safety instructions provided by your saw and cutting tool manufacturers. Always wear the proper eye and hearing protection. Use the Dado set only on saws that are designed to run Dado cutters. Check the saw's owner's manual to determine the size and type of Dado cutter compatible with your saw. Today, I'll only be using the Dado set in a table saw. Be sure to keep your hands and fingers a safe distance away from the saw blade at all times. I will demonstrate proper hand positioning and feeding methods throughout the video. Never wear jewelry or loose clothing when operating a saw or any other woodworking equipment. Your saw should be disconnected from the power source when changing, removing, or adjusting any blades, and use caution in handling the cutters during installation. Be sure to obtain the proper insert or throat plate for dado cutters. You will want to make sure that your saw is properly tuned and in good working order, and that the blade rotates freely within the saw before connecting the saw to the power supply. Always use saw guards and be certain your saw guard is in proper working condition for maximum safety. Today we're using an overarm guard with our dado cutter. Always use both outside blades of your dado set. Never use the chippers themselves or with only one outside blade. Not using both outside blades can cause personal injury or damage to the tool. When making wide or deep dado cuts, you should always remove the material in several shallow passes. The blade maintenance information that I'm going to share with you will help prolong the life of your saw and dado set and improve the cut quality of your tool. Be sure all your components are clean and free of dust. Chips between the components may affect the performance and damage the tool. We suggest soaking the blade in kerosene overnight in a sealed container and then brushing the carbide tips with a stiff nylon brush and wiping clean with a cloth. Freud recommends against using caustic cleaners such as oven cleaner, as they can break down the carbide teeth of the blade, causing advanced wear. Finally, when you're getting your dado set sharpened, make sure you only go to a qualified sharpening shop and be sure to get all blades of the dado set sharpened together. This will ensure consistent diameters for flat bottom grooves. We're going to begin today by setting up your saw with a dial-a-width dado set. First, check to see if you have a right or a left tilt saw so that you can set the dado set to the correct arbor orientation. Facing your saw, if your saw blade tilts to the right, it's a right tilt saw. If it tilts to the left, it's a left tilt saw. Freud's dial-a-width dado set comes set up for a right tilt saw. However, it is capable of being changed for use on a left tilt saw. If you have a left tilt saw, you can access the other video on this CD that will guide you through changing the orientation. Today I'm working with a right tilt saw, so I'll begin with the power disconnected and install the outside right blade on the arbor and slide it all the way over. Your adjustable dado set comes with 5 chippers. 4 of the chippers are 1/8 inch thick and the other is 3/32. The chart that came with your dado set explains which chippers to use with your outside blades and how many clicks of the dial are required to achieve the correct width for many nominal sizes. I'm going to create a 3/4 inch wide dado in a piece of 3/4 inch material, so according to the chart, in addition to my outside cutters, I will use my 3/32 chipper as well as the 3 1/8 inch chippers. The number of dial clicks is listed at the bottom of the chart. For my 3/4 inch dado, I will need 16 clicks. The chart is based on a dado set that has been zeroed out, and I will show you how to do that once we've installed our dado blades on the saw. Make sure that they are all rotated 45 degrees to each other and that the carbide teeth on the chippers and blades do not come in contact with one another or any part of the dado component. Now I'll zero out my dial so I can adjust it to the correct position for a 3/4 inch wide dado. To zero out the dial, I must adjust the hub so that it is perfectly flat with the blade. I can do this by placing a straight edge over the hub and the blade and decreasing the hub until the straight edge stops turning. Now it's ready to go on the arbor. Before I secure it with the arbor nut, I'll dial my 16 clicks for a 3/4 inch dado. The wrench that came with your dado set is 7/8 of an inch and fits most popular saws. If your saw requires a different wrench, you may need to obtain a socket wrench of the appropriate size to tighten the locking nut in place. Use a second wrench to tighten the dado blades. I've got 3 different pieces of material: a piece of maple plywood, a piece of MDF, and a piece of solid maple. that were all sold as 3/4 inch thick pieces. The challenge here is that this measurement is nominal and it varies from material to material. So this will be a great way for me to show you how to fine-tune your dado cut using the dial-a-width dado. We're ready to make a simple dado test cut. I'm going to use a piece of scrap melamine to fine-tune the width of the cut. It's better to begin with a dado that is too shallow and make multiple passes to produce a deeper cut. I'm going to put my insert back in, reconnect the power, put on my hearing protection and eyeglasses. The 3/4 MDF fits perfectly into the 3/4 inch dado that we've cut. But let's see what happens when we try to fit a piece of 3/4 inch solid maple into the dado. As you can see, the maple is too wide. A standard stack dado would require that I remove the blades from the saw and insert shims at this point to get the correct width. This is a great opportunity for me to show you how easy it is to adjust the dial hub on the dial-a-width dado set. Simply disconnect the power, loosen the arbor nut, and turn the dial clockwise to increase the width of cut. As you're turning the dial, listen for the clicks. The clicks indicate an increase or decrease in width in increments of 4/1000ths of an inch. Tighten it back up, reconnect the power, and make another test cut to see if our dado is wide enough for our 3/4 inch solid maple. By the way, our Freud dado has given us a beautiful cut. There's absolutely no chipping, and we have a perfectly flat bottomed cut. Now let's check the fit of our piece of maple. It fits in snugly and there are no gaps. Dial or digital calipers that measure in thousandths of an inch increments can make adjustments even easier. With these, you can measure the dado and the board and subtract one measurement from the other. You can then divide the remainder by 4 to find the number of clicks required. Let's see how our maple plywood fits in the groove. As you can see, our dado is too wide, so we'll have to make another dado cut. Let's check the measurement with our calipers. This dado measures 780 thousandths of an inch. What we'll do next is measure the thickness of our maple plywood. The thickness of our plywood is 724 thousandths of an inch. Now we'll subtract the width of the material from the width of the dado and find that it is 56 thousandths. If you divide that number by 4, you'll find the number of clicks that you need to decrease the dial hub to get our new dado width, which is 14 clicks. I'll unplug the saw and make the adjustment. I reconnected the power. I'm going to put on my safety glasses and hearing protection and make another test cut and see what I get. We have a perfect fit. If we were working with a dado that required shims, this process would be much more time consuming. We'd have to completely remove blades each time and add or remove shims. The dial-a-width dado set eliminates frustration and makes it very quick and easy to make dados. Let's move on to joinery using the dado set. We're going to use a dado sled to create different types of joinery using the dial-a-width stacked dado set. If you do not have a dado sled, you can download the plans to make one from this CD. We're going to begin by making half-lap joints by cutting out 2 mating slots that will set flush to form a half-lap joint. I've unplugged the saw and set the sled in the grooves on the table. I'll clamp a piece of 3/4 inch wood to the sled to help stabilize while cutting and also prevent blowout on the back side of the cut. I'll start by measuring the boards. In this case, our material is 2 inches wide and 3/4 inch thick. So I'll need a dado that is 1 inch deep by 3/4 inch. Mark the locations of the dado on the edges of the board. I've marked my workpiece ahead of time. My dado cutters are set for a 3/4 inch dado, but if your material is not this thickness, you will need to follow the previous instructions for setting the correct width. Set the cutter height so that the tips are about 1/4 inch above the sled, and then plug the saw in and make a test cut. My width is correct so I can make the first pass in my workpieces. Next, raise the dado set up another 1/4 inch and make another pass. After this, 2 more 1/4 inch passes are needed to reach the depth line I've marked on the board. Wait until the blade stops before you unclamp and remove the material. Our half-lap joints are a perfect fit. Keep the sled on the table and we'll create dental molding next. I've unplugged the saw and added an auxiliary fence to my sled to give me some adjustability. I've also made several holes in the fence, which I will put a dowel in to create an easy indexing fence to give us equal spaces between my dado cuts to create the beautiful look of dental molding. If you don't have an indexing fence, you can download simple instructions from this CD. You could opt to use a miter gauge and an indexing pin. They both accomplish the same task. I'm going to take our finished sample and show you how to evenly space your dados. First, put it flat against the sled, slide it into the dowel, and push it past the cutter. Pick it up, index to the dowel, push it past the cutter. Pick it up, index against the dowel, and push it past the cutter. I'll do this until I've finished my piece of wood. Now I'm ready to reconnect the power, put on my hearing protection and safety glasses. Watch as I make the first few cuts before trying it yourself. As you can see, I've made a series of evenly spaced 3/4 inch dado cuts across the piece to create dental molding for a nice decorative effect on the top edge of the curio cabinet that I'm building. Rabbet joints are frequently used to assemble corners and drawers, bookcases, cabinets, and similar jobs. The joint is formed by cutting a recess or a rabbet at the end of each piece to accommodate the second piece to be joined. For the curio cabinet project I'm working on, I'll cut rabbets around all 4 sides of my workpiece for the back so that you don't see the joint. I've installed an auxiliary fence to keep from cutting into my existing table saw fence. I've attached feather boards to the auxiliary fence to keep even pressure on my workpiece when I push it across the dado cutter. Draw an outline on the piece to be cut, disconnect the power to the saw, and set the dado blade at the depth required. Half the thickness of wood is standard. Reconnect the power and run the wood through the saw. Begin by rabbeting the end grain, turn the material clockwise, rabbet the long grain, turn it again and run the end grain, and then finally the long grain. This method ensures a smooth cut with virtually no tear out. I'm going to put my safety glasses on, eye protection. We've got a flawless rabbet to end on. This concludes the segment on Dado's tips and tricks. I hope that you were able to learn some valuable tips and techniques to use with your new Freud DataSet, and we'll see you next time.